A grown man should not need his father's company to prove he is useful, my father said. Wade Mercer gripped the job trailer chair beneath a white hard hat. Behind him, the state record read, Mercer Commercial Roofing, license active, responsible managing individual Jonah Mercer. He had fired me before reading the name his company depended on. This is not about usefulness, I said. It is about whether you can remove the person responsible for supervising construction and pretend nothing changed. My father looked toward Calvin Ross, the turnaround advisor he had hired 6 weeks earlier. Calvin was 37, neat enough to make a clean shirt look expensive, and holding the remote as if he had built the presentation instead of the summer intern. The company has a succession plan, Calvin said. Your functions have been distributed across estimating, field operations, and compliance. A license is not a function. The license belongs to Mercer, my father said. The business license does. I am the recorded managing individual. Those are different facts. My sister Leah sat across from me with a yellow legal pad and the payroll report beneath it. She would not look up. Her son, Caleb, sat beside Calvin in a new vest with operations printed over the pocket. Caleb was 32. He had worked for us for 4 years and could estimate a membrane roof within 3% on a clean set of plans. He had never run one through a wet Oregon winter. My father pulled a folder from the table. Effective today, your position as Vice President of Field Operations is eliminated. Caleb will lead operations with Calvin's support. There were 11 people in the trailer. 3 project managers for foreman Leah, Caleb, Calvin, and me. My mother sat near the door with the company checkbook in her canvas bag. You are firing me in a production meeting, I said. We are eliminating redundancy, Calvin replied. I asked my father. Wade's fingers tightened around the chair. Yes, Jonah. I am ending your employment. The room went quiet enough for rain to be heard against the metal roof. Salem rain rarely sounds dramatic. It settles in, finds the weak seam, and waits. Leah slid a 2-page document toward me. Human Resources prepared a separation acknowledgement. It confirms that all company property and responsibilities have been transferred. I read the first page. There was no severance. My health coverage ended at the close of the month. An $86,000 deferred profit allocation would be reviewed under the forfeiture clause for employees terminated for cause. The second page said I acknowledged that every licensing, supervisory, and project responsibility had been fully transferred to Caleb Price. Has Caleb passed the Oregon contractor examination? I asked. Caleb looked at his mother. Leah answered. He completed the course. That was not my question. My father struck the chair once with his palm. Do not humiliate your nephew because you dislike the decision. The state will ask the same question. Calvin leaned forward. Counsel prepared a temporary filing naming Wade while Caleb qualifies. How long does the temporary designation last? No more than 14 days. My mother spoke from the door. Jonah, please. That one word had carried me through 3 decades of weekends. Please cover the hospital roof. Please loan the company money until the receivable clears. Please do not make your father discuss ownership during dinner. I turned to Calvin. Did counsel say the company gets 14 days without a managing individual? He set the remote down. No. Wade signs as temporary managing individual today. The company then has 14 days to name the permanent replacement. Then Caleb can answer. Caleb rubbed his thumb across the seam of his vest. My test is being scheduled. Have you passed it? Not yet. The rain seemed louder. My father pushed the acknowledgement closer. Sign the transfer. Caleb will finish what he needs to finish. I cannot transfer a qualification he does not have. You can confirm that the work was handed off. Not the permanent supervision the state has tied to me. Wade walked around the table until he stood behind Caleb. 42 people get paid on Friday because this company keeps moving. A man provides. He does not hold 42 families over one line on a state form. Luis Ortega, our senior foreman, shifted his boots beneath the table. I knew what his Friday check carried. If Wade signs the temporary form, He assumes construction supervision today, I said. Is that what he intends? I will sign for my laptop, keys, truck, and company files, I said. I will not certify a false transfer. Then walk out knowing what follows, my father said. What follows is the correction period your advisor just described. What follows is vendors hearing the founder's son walked off a public school job. What follows is a surety asking why. What follows is me explaining who supervised East Ridge when water came through the third floor. The East Ridge claim had not been mentioned in a production meeting for 9 months. My father had found the one nail he knew was still proud of the deck. Are you threatening to blame me? I asked. I am telling the truth about responsibility. You wanted your name beside the license. Responsibility comes with the name. I looked at Leah. She finally met my eyes. Sign for the property, Jonah. Do not sign the second page. Leah had finally told me the truth. I crossed out the licensing paragraph, initialed the property list, and placed my truck keys on the table. My father watched the keys land. There, I said, you have the truck. You do not have my name. I left before my mother could say please again. My name is Jonah Mercer. I was 53 that Monday, and I had worked for my father since I was 22, after 4 years with a Portland roofer. By noon, I had no job, no company truck, and no clean way to separate myself from work already carrying my signature. The state did not shut Mercer down when I crossed the gravel yard. No dashboard turned red. No inspector arrived with a clipboard. Mercer still needed a valid temporary designation before it could use the 14-day replacement period. What moved was the clock. At 12:40, I sat in the passenger chair of Nora Bell's office in downtown Salem. Nora had represented contractors longer than Calvin had been alive. She wore flat shoes, kept sharpened pencils in a coffee mug, and did not use 3 words where one would survive. She read the separation acknowledgement once. You were right not to sign the transfer. Can I notify the board myself? We can submit the responsible managing individual change notice with the effective date. The company also has reporting duties. Losing you does not erase the business license this afternoon. It starts a correction process. 14 days. Only after they file a valid temporary designation. The temporary person must be an owner, officer, or employee with real management or supervisory authority. The designation lasts no more than 14 days. If they fail to appoint a qualified permanent replacement, they risk a fine and suspension. Do not tell anyone suspension is automatic at midnight on day 15. Calvin already thinks a course certificate is a license. Calvin is not my client. She turned the second page toward me. This language was built to make the record say Caleb assumed supervision today. He cannot assume the responsible managing individual role merely because your father assigns him a title. What about the jobs already running? Mercer remains the contractor while its license remains active. Your departure does not dissolve its contracts. It does mean you stop directing new work. Put that in writing. And East Ridge. Nora leaned back. Tell me the part you do not want in your father's letter. That was Nora's way. She never asked whether there was a bad fact. She asked which one had been waiting outside. 6 years earlier, Wade had asked me to become Mercer's responsible managing individual. The title sounded ceremonial when he first said it. We were in the old shop on Silverton Road, standing over a plywood table stained by roofing cement. An aluminum level hung above us, with his initials scratched near one end and mine near the other. My father had been 70 then and recovering from rotator cuff surgery. The company needed to renew its commercial endorsement. You already run the crews, he said. This puts the state record where the work is. Does it put the decisions there too? He smiled. Always a contract with you. My mother handed me the application. Your father built this for you and Leah. He built it for himself, I said. Wade laughed. That is how fathers build things for children. We tell ourselves the first lie so we can survive the first 10 years. My father had many lines like that. They were one reason hard conversations kept ending before anything was settled. I completed the training, passed the examination, and became the responsible managing individual. I was already supervising construction. The change should have made the legal record match the work. For the first year, it did. I approved field plans, reviewed safety incidents, and signed off on project staffing. Wade handled sales and banking. Leah managed payroll and billing. My mother still wrote checks for vendors who refused electronic deposits. Then my father started selling schedules before asking whether a schedule could be built. He promised a hospital re-roof in 21 working days. I said it required 28. He promised a warehouse owner that we could install through November rain. I moved the crew to nights and made it work. Each rescue became proof that my objection had been unnecessary. "You always say no first," Wade told me after the warehouse. "Then you find a way." Finding a way is not the same as the first promise being safe. The roof is dry. The roof was dry. That part mattered to him more than the path. 3 years later, my wife, Claire, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Her first treatment began in February. By May, I knew the routes from every Mercer job to Salem Hospital better than I knew the streets around my own house. My father covered for me at first. He attended foreman meetings, called clients, and sat beside Claire when I had to inspect a school roof in Eugene. He loved her without making a speech about it. That made what came later harder to name. East Ridge was a 4-story medical office building near Portland. We were replacing 76,000 square feet of membrane during an early cold snap. The manufacturer's instructions set limits for adhesive temperature and surface conditions. At 6:10 one October morning, I measured the deck at 36 degrees. The adhesive drums had been stored inside, but the roof surface was below the approved range. I told the foreman to stop installation until the deck warmed. At 8:20, Claire's oncologist called. Her blood pressure had dropped, and the hospital wanted family there. I called Wade from the parking lot. The west section stays stopped until the deck reaches the limit. Luis has the thermometer. Do not let the owner's schedule push it. Go to Claire, he said. I will handle the roof. I believed him because he was my father. I also believed him because I needed to. What I did not do was send the written stop work notice required by my own field procedure. I opened the form on my phone, entered the project name, and left it in drafts when the nurse came through the hospital doors. Claire died 11 days later. The west section was installed that afternoon. The first leak appeared the following winter. Mercer patched it. The second appeared 6 months later. By the time the building owner filed a formal claim, the temperature log showed my reading and no written stop work order. Wade told the surety the installation had continued under field supervision. My initials were on the morning report. Luis had added a note at the bottom. Work resumed by executive direction at 10:15. He had not written which executive. I knew my father had made the call. I also knew I had left my form in drafts. That is the part, I told Nora. She folded her hands. Did you alter the record? No. Did you ask Luis to change his note? No. Did you disclose the draft notice when the claim arrived? I told Wade it existed. He said a draft was not a notice. He was right about that. I know. Nora tapped the separation paper. Leaving Mercer ends your authority over future construction. It does not erase your responsibility for decisions made while you were the responsible managing individual. If Mercer leaves a construction debt unpaid, an agency order can affect whether you serve as an owner, officer, or managing individual elsewhere. Your father can create noise with East Ridge. Whether the noise becomes liability depends on the full record. Can he cost me another job? Yes, truth can cost you. So can a lie before you prove it is a lie. I had been speaking with the Willamette School Cooperative about a facilities consulting contract. It was not a job offer. It was a 6-month assignment inspecting roofs for 7 rural districts, enough income to let me choose what came next. Nora sharpened one of her pencils. Do you want your name removed from Mercer's record? I thought about Luis and the 41 other checks due Friday. I thought about East Ridge. I thought about my father saying a man provides. Yes, I said. Then we file the truth and let every institution do its own job. I signed the notice at 1:14 in the afternoon. The first call came before I reached my house. Leah's name lit the dashboard of Claire's old Subaru. I had bought the car for her during treatment because the passenger seat was easier on her back. After she died, I could not sell it. Avoidance can look like loyalty when the object is parked in your garage. I answered through the speaker. Did the board contact you? Counsel received a copy from Nora. Wade is furious. He fired the responsible managing individual. He fired his operations officer. He thought you would remain on the record during transition. Nobody asked. Would you have agreed? Not after today. Leah exhaled. The school district runs its license verification Thursday. Then report the temporary change and name the replacement. Caleb cannot test until next week. Calvin said you were prepared. Calvin believed Caleb had passed. Did Caleb tell him that? He said he had completed the requirement. I pulled into my driveway and shut off the engine. You put his name on the transfer statement. Calvin revised the human resources language after council prepared a separate temporary filing for Wade. Council approved, saying Caleb had already received every responsibility? No. You knew he had not passed. I knew this morning. Before or after you printed the form? She did not answer. Leah. Before. Leah had known before she printed the form. She had stood beside the open gate and watched the dog run through. Why? I asked. Because payroll is $174,000 next Friday. Because the line is almost full. Because Wade thinks the school mobilization gets us through winter. Because every meeting with you became another reason we were not ready. Were we ready? No. Then why fire the person who kept saying so? Because he was going to fire somebody, Jonah. Calvin's model cut 6 positions. I got it to 1. Mine. Yours was the largest salary outside Wade's. You have savings. I looked at the dark kitchen window. You chose the person who could survive being betrayed. I chose the person who had somewhere else to go. That is the same sentence with cleaner shoes. Maybe you need to go, she said. Maybe a grown man should build something without hiding inside his father's company. Did you call to ask me back? I said. I called to ask whether you will delay the effective date until Caleb passes. No. Then I called to tell you Wade is sending a performance notice to the school district and the surety. He says the responsible managing individual change is connected to East Ridge. Is that your advice or his threat? It is what he is doing. Do you agree with it? I do not know anymore. She ended the call. At 4:30, the school cooperative emailed me. My consulting interview scheduled for Friday had been postponed pending clarification of my departure from Mercer and any connection to an open construction claim. My father had needed less than 4 hours to find the part of my future he could reach. I called Everett Hale, a 64-year-old superintendent who had left Cascade Weatherproofing in January. He had completed Oregon's current training and examination while planning a smaller consulting practice, and he was not attached to another contractor's license. Everett had refused a short Mercer assignment the previous winter because Wade would not put field authority in writing. If Leah calls with a real employment offer and a board resolution, I will listen, he said. I will not lend anyone a name. He also wanted a higher salary than Wade had budgeted and would not start until the board resolution and bank-approved cash plan were signed. On Tuesday morning, I woke at 5:10 without an alarm. 31 years of roofing had trained my body to rise before weather became a decision. I made coffee, opened the garage, and stared at the empty space where the company truck had been. The hooks on the wall still held my rain jacket and fall protection bag. Wade had bought me the bag after I slipped on a warehouse parapet at 26. There are families that say love. Mine purchased the equipment that kept you from hitting concrete. At 6, Nora sent confirmation that the state had received our notice. The effective date was Monday. Mercer had appointed Wade temporary managing individual effective Monday, and council notified the board Tuesday morning. As president and controlling owner, he could serve temporarily only by certifying that he held real construction authority. The 14-day clock began with Tuesday's notification. At 6:12, Wade called. Withdraw it, he said. Good morning. Do not play calm with me. You ended my employment. The record needs to match. The record can match after Caleb tests. Then you should have fired me after Caleb qualified. You knew what was at stake. I asked in the room. You cornered the boy. The state examination will be less considerate. Wade lowered his voice. The district checks us Thursday. If you leave the filing in place, Denise Park can move to the next bidder. Then tell her the truth and show the correction plan. A school board does not buy uncertainty. It should not buy an unsupported replacement timetable either. He was silent for a moment. Your mother put 30 years into that house. What does the house have to do with a roof bid? Nothing if you withdraw the notice. The call ended. I stood beside Claire's Subaru with the phone in my hand. My father had used threats before, but he usually described the weapon. This time he had shown me only the handle. At 8, I drove to East Ridge. I was no longer acting for Mercer, so I parked on the public street and looked from the sidewalk. Plastic sheeting covered windows below the west roof. A restoration van stood near the loading entrance. The building manager, Helen Shaw, saw me through the glass and came outside. You are not supposed to be here without counsel. I am on the sidewalk. That is what your father said you would say. Did he call you? Yesterday afternoon. He said you left the company and asked whether the claim could be resolved without naming individuals. What did you tell him? That the building does not care which Mercer made the decision. It leaks on both of you. Helen had managed commercial property for 24 years. She had no interest in our family hierarchy. Water arrived below the ceiling and somebody paid. Is the claim amount still $225,000? I asked. That is the current repair estimate. Lost tenant costs are separate. Has the surety accepted it? The surety asked for more records. Your father says you controlled installation. I stopped the work that morning. In writing, I looked at the plastic over the third-floor windows. Helen nodded once. That is what I thought. I left for the hospital. I know about your wife, Jonah. I am sorry. The water does not know. She went back inside. I remained on the sidewalk until the restoration crew carried another roll of plastic through the doors. At 10:30, Denise Park from the school district called. Her voice was warm in the practiced way of a person who often delivered decisions nobody wanted. Mr. Mercer, I understand you are no longer employed by Mercer Commercial Roofing. That is correct. Are you still serving as the company's responsible managing individual? No. The state received notice this morning, effective yesterday. Did you authorize Caleb Price to replace you? That is not something I can authorize. He must qualify and the company must report him. Has he qualified? Ask the company. I have. I am asking you because your name appears on the bid's licensing schedule, and Mr. Price appears on a personnel update we received Friday. What does the update say? It identifies him as incoming operations director and responsible managing individual upon award. The certification is signed by Wade Mercer. Friday had been 3 days before my firing. My father had already promised my recorded role to Caleb. Does it say Caleb completed the state requirements? I asked. It says all named personnel hold or will hold required qualifications before notice to proceed. That may be true by then. It is not true today. Our concern is not only the eventual qualification. Our concern is whether the bidder disclosed a material personnel change while asking us to verify capacity. What happens now? We pause the intended award and request clarification from Mercer. We may proceed to the next responsive bidder. No decision has been made. Are you calling about my consulting interview too? I am calling as facilities director. The cooperative's consultant selection is separate. It was postponed after Wade contacted you. The cooperative received information about East Ridge. We verify anything that could affect an owner's representative. That is not a finding against you. It feels like one from this side. I expect it does. She paused. Do not send me company documents. If you have personal knowledge relevant to our bid process, Norabelle can route it through Procurement Council. Denise gave me no comfort, only the correct route. I disliked it and knew she was right. By noon, Mercer had issued a statement to managers. Jonah Mercer voluntarily abandoned his licensing role during a planned transition, creating unnecessary uncertainty. Operations continued under experienced leadership. Luis photographed the statement on the breakroom bulletin board and sent it to me. Under the picture, he wrote, "You quit or they fired you." I replied, "They fired me. I filed the change because I cannot supervise work from my kitchen." His answer came 2 minutes later. "We need to talk." We met after dark at a diner near the fairgrounds. Luis arrived in work pants with adhesive on one knee. He did not order food. "Wade says you tried to sync the license," he said. "Wade removed me." I heard. "Then why ask?" "Because the crews heard you left over a title." "The title is a state responsibility. I know what a responsible managing individual is. You taught the class when we renewed." The waitress set down 2 coffees. Luis waited until she left. "You told us your signature on the field plan meant the plan could not change without review," he said. "That is the procedure." "Wade changed plans." "Yes." "More than once." "Yes." "And you stayed on the license." I wrapped both hands around my cup. "I documented every objection." "That is not what I asked." "No. I did not leave." Luis leaned closer. "We believed you could stop him. When Wade promised a schedule, we worked the schedule because Jonah had inspected it. When Calvin cut a labor allowance, we assumed Jonah would fix it before the roof opened. I usually did. That is the problem. You made unsafe management survivable. Then you let us call that supervision." I could have told him about Claire. I could have listed the times I won, the jobs I stopped, and the money I spent from my own account when payroll was late. I said nothing. Luis took a folded sheet from his jacket. It was a copy of the East Ridge Daily Report. "I wrote executive direction because Wade told me not to use his name," he said. "You saw this nearly 3 years ago." "I did. Why didn't you correct it?" "I thought the temperature record and my draft notice would be enough if the claim went formal." "Enough for what?" "To prove you were almost responsible." I looked down at the report. "For guys are asking whether to start looking for work," Luis said. "I told them to wait through Friday. I will not tell them longer unless somebody shows us a real plan." "You should not." "That is all you have? What would you like me to say?" "I would like you to admit you knew your father could overrule you and let us believe he could not." "I knew." Luis nodded. His anger did not soften. "Good. Now at least one Mercer said it." He left without touching the coffee. On Wednesday, Mara Levin from North Cascade Surety requested an interview. Mercer carried a $55,000 commercial specialty contractor level 1 license bond and separate project bonding. North Cascade had also issued the East Ridge performance bond. Mara's concern was not whether the license bond alone covered the repair. It was the company's claim exposure and whether management instability increased the chance of more defaults. Nora joined the call from her office. Mara joined from Portland with an associate whose only words were his name. "Mr. Mercer," Mara said, "your father reports that you resigned without completing a planned responsible managing individual transition. Do you agree?" "No. My position was eliminated Monday morning. I declined to sign a statement saying responsibilities had transferred to an unqualified person." "Do you have the separation document?" Nora answered. "We will provide the document Jonah signed and the unexecuted second page." "Did you know the company intended to name Caleb Price?" "I saw his name in a draft file 2 weeks ago," I said. "I asked Wade whether Caleb had tested. Wade told me to focus on production." "Did you raise the issue in writing?" "No." Nora made a note. Mara continued. "The East Ridge claimant alleges improper cold weather installation. Who authorized work to resume?" "Wade did." "Were you present?" "No. I left for a medical emergency." "Did you issue a written stop work direction before leaving?" "I created a draft and did not send it." "Did you later approve the daily report?" "I initialed the report after the work occurred. It included the deck temperature and Luis Ortega's note that work resumed by executive direction." Why did you approve it? Because it accurately recorded the work that occurred. Did your approval also represent acceptance of the installation? No. I opened a corrective action item. Please provide it. I looked at Nora. The corrective action log belonged to Mercer. Request it from the company, Nora said. Jonah will not transfer company records from personal storage. Mara's expression did not change. Do you have company records in personal storage? No, I said. I have my own emails with Mercer and records lawfully sent to me. I returned the laptop. Each accurate answer opened another question about work that still carried my initials. Mara ended with 3 requests for records and no opinion. The shorty did not suspend Mercer or clear me. It reserved its rights and scheduled a meeting with company leadership for Friday. Pioneer Casualty, Mercer's general liability insurer, sent a separate reservation of rights letter that afternoon. It would investigate interior property damage and tenant claims. It did not promise to pay for removing and replacing Mercer's own defective roof work. North Cascade protected its bond exposure. Pioneer protected its policy position. Neither existed to decide which Mercer deserved sympathy. At 2 that afternoon, Caleb came to my house. He stood on the porch in rain gear, holding a paper bag from the sandwich shop Claire used to like. Grandma said you forget lunch when you're angry. Your grandmother sent you? She sent the sandwich. I came because the testing company canceled my appointment. I let him inside. Caleb placed the bag on the kitchen counter. My course provider did not transmit completion. They say I missed the last hour. Did you? I left early for a bid walk. Calvin said it would count. Calvin does not certify attendance. I know that now. When is the next class? Saturday. Then the exam provider has openings next Thursday. If I pass, the background process still has to clear. So not within the district's Thursday verification. No. He stared at the floor. I did not tell Wade I had passed. I said I finished the course. You knew what he heard. Yes. You let your grandfather fire me based on it. Caleb's eyes lifted. He was going to fire you anyway. That does not answer me. I wanted the job. Do you still want it? I asked. I want to be more than Leah's son who measures drawings. I thought if they put me in the chair, I would become the person who belonged there. Chairs do not train anybody. Neither did you. The sentence surprised both of us. I asked to shadow your inspections for a year, he continued. You told me the field was too busy. I asked to sit in on shorty meetings. You said I should learn estimating first. Every path to your job ran through you, and you kept saying later. He was right. I had called it protecting standards. Some of it had been protecting my place. I should have trained you, I said. Caleb sat at the table. Can you help me pass? I can explain the work. I will not feed you exam answers or certify you before you are ready. Wade signed the temporary change form, Caleb said. Counsel told him the temporary person does not need to finish the course or examination first. That is correct, I said. He does have to be an owner, officer, or employee with actual construction authority. He also certified that an unpaid construction debt could affect whether he serves on another license. Did he read that part? Caleb pushed the sandwich toward me. He stopped at the signature line. At 3:40, Nora forwarded the filed copy supplied by Mercer's counsel. Wade's appointment was effective Monday, and Tuesday's notice began a temporary period of no more than 14 days. The filing kept Mercer from operating with an empty role. It also put his signature beneath the duties he had spent years calling mine. Mercer's school bid still identified Caleb as the permanent replacement expected upon award. He had not completed the course, passed the examination, or entered the final application process. The temporary filing solved today's state record problem. It did not make the personnel schedule reliable or give the district a reason to trust tomorrow's plan. Denise called at 4:15. The intended award is withdrawn pending final procurement review. We are beginning responsibility review of the second bidder. Is Mercer disqualified? Not at this time. The district will not issue notice to proceed while the license transition and personnel certification remain unresolved. Did my father send you the East Ridge letter? He did. It is in the responsibility file. So is your response through counsel. I have not sent one. Then you should decide whether you want the file to contain only his account. I called Nora. We respond with dates, not adjectives, she said. Your employment ended Monday. You notified the board Tuesday. You identified the unsent stop work notice. You do not accuse Wade of fraud unless we can prove intent. He signed a personnel certification naming an unqualified replacement. He signed a statement about qualification before notice to proceed. Bad judgment is already doing enough work. Do not promote it without evidence. At 5, Leah emailed that Friday payroll would clear. The week after remained uncertain. At 6:20, my mother unlocked my front door with the emergency key I had forgotten she owned. She entered carrying a blue accordion folder and 2 containers of beef stew. You changed the garage code, she said. I changed the company access codes. You still have a key to my house. Then we each kept one thing too long. She set the stew in the refrigerator and the folder on the table. Your father should have told you this, she said. Which part? The house. Inside the folder was a line of credit modification dated 18 months earlier. Wade and Ellen Mercer had pledged their home as additional collateral. The current balance was $780,000. Why? I asked. The East Ridge repairs started before the surety would reserve the claim. Then winter delayed 2 receivables. Wade said the school job would restore the line. The school job needs working capital before it restores anything. I know. How much material is ordered? $640,000. $210,000 is due before delivery. And payroll after Friday? $174,000 for 2 weeks, including taxes and benefits. I turned through the statements. The school mobilization schedule showed a $480,000 first billing after notice to proceed. It was not cash at award. It was not guaranteed before labor and material commitments. This does not bridge the line, I said. It lets the bank believe there is a bridge. Did the bank see the East Ridge Reserve? My mother folded her hands. Not the current amount. Did the surety know about the home? That is the bank's collateral, not the surety's. That was not my question. She looked toward Claire's empty chair. No. The loan made my father's threat legible. He was trying to reach retirement across a floor already giving way. He had fired the person who kept marking the soft spots because the marks were becoming visible to the bank. You knew before Monday, I said. Yes. You sat by the door while he fired me. I thought you would sign the transition and give us 2 weeks. You thought I would carry legal responsibility without authority. I thought you would protect the company. From what? The truth. My mother closed the folder. From losing the house your father promised me was safe. I wanted to tell her she had chosen the house over her son. The sentence was ready. It was also too clean. How much of this did you sign? I asked. The collateral agreement. The bank officer explained it. Then Wade did not do this to you. You did it with him. She flinched, but she did not deny it. A grown son should not make his parents beg to keep their home, she said. And parents should not make their son carry a license to hide a loan. We sat on opposite sides of the table while the refrigerator motor turned on. What do you want? She asked. I want the East Ridge record corrected. I want Wade to withdraw the letter to the district. I want Mercer to stop saying I abandoned the company. And the license? A qualified person with actual authority. You. Not under the old arrangement. My mother stood. Then come Friday and tell him what the new arrangement costs. This is not a purchase. Everything with a bank statement is a purchase. The real question is whether the price is money. She left the blue folder on my table and took her emergency key from the ring before she went. Thursday afternoon, District Procurement Council held a recorded clarification conference. Denise Park attended for facilities. Wade, Leah, Caleb, and Mercer's counsel represented the bidder. Nora and I attended because the district had asked for direct confirmation of my termination date and state notice. Denise asked Wade to explain the personnel certification in the school bid. Caleb was expected to qualify before notice to proceed, Wade said. Was he qualified when you identified him as incoming responsible managing individual? Denise asked. The sentence says before notice to proceed. The sentence also appears in a schedule certifying the bidder's key personnel capacity. Did you know he had not completed the course requirement? Wade looked at Caleb. I told him I finished, Caleb said. I did not tell him I left the final hour. Did you know he had not passed the examination? Denise asked Wade. I knew the test was being arranged. Then the district received an incomplete picture during responsibility review. The temporary designation keeps your current license record-staffed. It does not require us to hold an award for a proposed permanent replacement. Procurement Council gave Mercer until Monday for a final written response. The district would decide between Mercer and the second bidder Tuesday. No one discussed the bank, my parents' home, or surety conditions in that conference. Friday's surety meeting began at 8 in the same trailer where my father had fired me. Mercer authorized limited information sharing for the workout. I attended with Nora. Mara Levin sat beside the bank's workout officer. Pioneer Casualties Claims Counsel joined only for the reserved East Ridge coverage segment. Nobody represented the licensing board or the school district. Wade wore the white hard hat again. Mara asked him to remove it because the brim blocked her view across the table. He placed it under his chair. Leah distributed a cash report. Calvin sat against the wall without a speaking role. Caleb had returned his operations vest and wore his old gray one. Mara began. Our purpose is to determine whether North Cascade continues supporting Mercer and on what terms. We are not deciding family fault. The bank officer added, we are also not extending new credit today. Pioneer Council said its coverage position remained reserved. Wade looked at my mother. Ellen opened the blue folder and placed the collateral modification in front of him. You showed him? He asked. I showed our son what he was being asked to save, she said. Mara raised one hand before we could argue. If this becomes a family debate, North Cascade can make its decision without you. The room settled. She turned to the East Ridge file. The repair estimate was $225,000. Tenant and interior losses were being handled separately by Pioneer. North Cascade wanted a funded reserve for the uncovered workmanship exposure and full access to the field record. Mr. Mercer, Mara said to my father, you stated that Jonah had sole control of the installation. He was operations superintendent and responsible managing individual. Did you direct Luis Ortega to resume work on the west section? Wade looked at me. Jonah left. Somebody had to decide. That is not an answer, Mara said. Yes, I told Luis to continue when the surface warmed. Did anyone record a compliant temperature before work resumed? Leah turned the daily report toward him. No second reading appears. Wade's jaw moved as if he were chewing a word. It was warmer by 10. That is an inference, Nora said. Not a reading. My father pointed at me. He approved the report. I initialed the record the next week, I said. I also opened corrective action number 174. Leah searched the document folder and found the log. The entry said cold weather installation performed after verbal executive release, adhesion testing required, warranty review pending. The status column said open. Mara asked, who had authority to close corrective actions? Jonah, Wade said. Why did it remain open? I answered. Wade refused destructive adhesion testing because it would delay closeout and could trigger replacement of the west section. I did not escalate beyond the internal log. Could you have notified the owner? Yes. Could you have reported the dispute to the board or resigned as responsible managing individual? Yes. Why didn't you? Claire's last week was no longer an answer for the years that followed. I believed I could correct it inside the company, I said. I also believed I would inherit control if I waited. Wade looked away first. My father had resumed the roof. I had preserved the record just well enough to prove I knew the governance was broken, then stayed beside the license. Mara closed the file. North Cascade C's shared management failure. We will not assign percentages today. Our conditions are a funded claim reserve, an acceptable license management plan, and independent review of every active project. How much reserve? Leah asked. $225,000 initially. We may adjust after tenant losses are documented. And the school bond? Wade asked. We will not issue additional project bonds until the management plan is accepted. The existing construction contractor's board bond remains in place. Do not describe that as approval of your current operations. The bank officer requested the same management plan and a 13-week cash forecast. The line would remain at its current balance with no new advances. The home stayed pledged. We turned to the arithmetic. After the outside parties left, Calvin projected a slide titled Stabilization Options. Option 1 assumed I would return as responsible managing individual for 6 months at a reduced salary. Option 2 assumed Caleb would qualify within 14 days. Option 3 called for strategic wind down. Delete Option 2, I said. Caleb cannot complete the process on your preferred date merely because the slide says he can. Calvin lowered the remote. Then what do you propose? Nora placed a 1-page term sheet on the table. I would return as a salaried employee for no more than 45 days if the company and state accepted the association. A board resolution would give me actual authority over construction supervision, staffing, stop work decisions, and license compliance. Wade would step out of daily operations. The company would hire Everett Hale, a 64-year-old superintendent who had already completed Oregon's current training and examination. Council would confirm his eligibility and submit his responsible managing individual application immediately. Mercer would correct its statement to employees, the school district, and the surety. It would say my position was eliminated and that I reported the resulting change. It would withdraw the claim that I abandoned a planned transition. The East Ridge record would include Wade's verbal release, my unsent stop work draft, and my failure to escalate the open corrective action. Nobody received a clean version. Finally, Mercer would pay my earned wages and unused leave. I would waive the disputed $86,000 deferred profit share and any claim to future ownership. Both sides would sign a limited employment release, not a gag order about regulators. My father read the page twice. You want my authority for 45 days over construction decisions that carry my name. You want me to admit I fired you. You did fire me. You want to walk away from the company after I made you its future. You never made me its future. You let me assume I was. Wade pushed the term sheet away. A grown man does not charge his parents $86,000 for freedom. I am giving up $86,000. Money the company cannot pay. Money you used for 31 years to keep me waiting for ownership. Leah spoke quietly. He is right. Wade turned toward her. You wrote the plan. I wrote a profit allocation. I let you call it succession because that kept Jonah here. My mother opened the company checkbook, removed a blank check, and tore it in half. Nobody is writing a check we cannot cover. Take the waiver. Wade looked around the table. The company name was on the wall, the folders, the hard hat beneath his chair, and every person refusing to carry it the old way. No, he said. He stood and left. The temporary designation was already 3 days old. For the next 3 days, I did not return to Mercer. Nora sent the term sheet to company counsel. Everett Hale met Leah and toured 2 active jobs without representing himself as responsible managing individual. Caleb attended the full training session on Saturday. Friday afternoon, North Cascade gave Mercer until Monday at noon to deliver an acceptable license management plan. The bank reserved a reporting default over the delayed East Ridge disclosure and scheduled a board-level workout for the same day. Leah told Wade the 3 directors would vote on the stabilization plan Monday whether he attended or not. I spent Sunday building a list for an inspection practice I had talked about for years. It included a business filing, the proper commercial construction contractor's board endorsement, a $55,000 bond, general liability coverage, and my own responsible managing individual application. The equipment came after that: moisture meter, infrared camera, core sampler, roof hatch tools, and laptop. I could not offer paid inspections until the new license was active. The list was easier than naming the business. At 4 in the afternoon, Wade arrived alone. He did not knock. He stood in the open garage, looking at the hooks where my Mercer gear still hung. "Your mother gave back the key," I said. "The door was open. That is not permission." He nodded. "No, it isn't." My father sat on the lowered tailgate of my utility trailer. He looked smaller without the hard hat. "Everett wants Leah to be president," he said. "Everett wants a clear chain of authority." Same thing in longer words. "Will you do it?" "Mercer has 3 directors. You, Mom, and Leah. If all 3 sign, the board can do it." "You do not need my shares?" "I do not own shares." He stared at the garage floor. "No, you don't." It was the first time he had said the fact without decorating it as someday. "The school job is gone," he said. "Denise has not decided. She will choose the second bidder." I would. "Then why fight the term sheet?" "Because agreeing means the company is not the thing I said it was." "What did you say it was?" "Proof." "Of what?" Wade looked toward the rain beyond the garage. "That I could provide something nobody could take from my family. The bank can take the house." "I know. The state can suspend the license." "I know. You can fire your son." He rubbed both palms against his knees. "I know that now too." It was not an apology. My father had always trusted facts that hurt him more than words that exposed him. "Why did you send the East Ridge letter?" I asked. "Because Denise told me the bid was pausing, and I wanted the reason to be you." "Was it?" "No. Say the rest." He looked at me. I resumed the roof. "You let the record sit. We both wanted the problem to wait until something else saved us." "Nothing did." "No." He pulled Nora's term sheet from his jacket. His initials appeared beside every paragraph except the deferred profit waiver. "Keep the 86, he said. "I will pay it when the school money comes." "There will be no school money." "Then when the next job comes." "That is the same promise." He held the page out. "I do not know another one." I took the term sheet and crossed out the payment line. "The waiver stays. I will not spend another year waiting for money tied to a future you cannot define." "That is a foolish amount to surrender." "Maybe. Your mother will say I cheated you. She helped." The corner of his mouth moved, then stopped. "You sound like her." "That is not the insult you think it is." He signed the bottom. On Monday morning, Mercer's 3 directors, Wade, Ellen, and Leah, signed a unanimous written consent in Nora's conference room. Wade resigned as president and became non-executive chairman. Leah became president. The resolution gave me final authority over construction during the temporary employment period. Company counsel submitted the association papers and Everett's replacement application. We did not announce that the state had approved something before it had. Mercer remained active under the filed temporary designation while the replacement filings were reviewed. At 11, I returned to the shop. Luis met me beside the time clock. "Are you back?" "For 45 days at most." Everett takes the role when the state accepts him. "Can Wade overrule a stop work order?" "Not under the board resolution." "Can Leah?" "No. She can fire me. She cannot use my name afterward." Luis studied my face. "You should have made that rule 6 years ago." "Yes. I am still angry." "You should be." He handed me a moisture meter. "East Ridge at 1. Do not be late." We spent the afternoon opening test cuts on the west roof with the owner, manufacturer, and surety consultant present. 3 sections showed weak adhesion. 2 passed. The repair would be smaller than full replacement and larger than my father had hoped. Nobody celebrated the difference. On Tuesday, Denise called Leah and me together. The school district issued notice of intent to award the $4,800,000 project to the second bidder. "Mercer's license remains active today," Denise said. "Our decision is based on an unsupported replacement timetable management uncertainty, and schedule risk. It is not a licensing penalty. The final award follows the required protest period. Leah thanked her for the explanation. After the call, she closed her office door and cried for exactly 1 minute. Then she opened the cash forecast and turned the monitor toward me. "Canceling the school material costs $58,000, she said. "The supplier keeps it from our deposit. The loss is already paid." She entered the proposed sale of the sheet metal service unit. A local mechanical contractor had offered $340,000 net of closing costs for its equipment, customer list, and 6 employee positions. She entered a delayed receivable of $198,000 and $90,000 of Wade's after-tax personal cash as a documented equity contribution. "$628,000 coming in," she said. "Now read what leaves." I entered $225,000 for the East Ridge Workmanship Reserve. Leah entered $174,000 for the next 2-week payroll. The screen showed $229,000 remaining. "Severance?" I asked. $72,000 total for 3 employees. Calvin's consulting contract simply ends. The final working reserve was $157,000. It was narrow, but it reconciled. Leah put the bank officer on speaker. The bank's blanket lien covered Mercer's equipment, receivables, and sale proceeds. It had reserved a reporting default over the delayed East Ridge disclosure. Under the proposed forbearance, the bank would consent to the unit sale, release its lien on the transferred assets, and place the sale and receivable proceeds in a controlled account. The 13-week budget allowed the reserve, payroll, and severance payments we had entered. The $780,000 line would not be paid off. The bank offered 6 months of forbearance, monthly reporting, and a requirement to sell the unused storage yard. My parents' house remained collateral. Leah placed 4 names on the table. Calvin's was first. 3 employees would receive 6 weeks of severance. One was Margaret Dunn, who had processed vendor certificates for 17 years. "You save the crews and cut the person who reads the insurance forms," I said. "I cut 2 managers, 1 clerk, and a consultant because the work is smaller," Leah replied. "There is no version where everybody stays." Then read the names aloud. She did. Margaret found another job within a month. That did not make the layoff temporary. It made her competent in 2 places and loyal to only one of them. Mercer did not protest the responsibility determination. After the 7-day period expired, the district executed the contract with the second bidder. On the 9th day after Tuesday's temporary notice, the state accepted my return association. Wade's temporary period ended with a qualified permanent managing individual on the listing. 3 weeks later, while I remained Mercer's recorded managing individual and employee, the state approved Everett after confirming his employment and eligibility. A licensing specialist requested a corrected date, counsel responded, and the online listing changed on a Wednesday afternoon. Leah turned her monitor toward Everett. His name now appeared beside the license. His phone rang before anyone could congratulate him. A foreman reported damp insulation beneath the east section of an active roof. "Stop that section and cover it," Everett said. Leah asked how long. "Until I inspect it and the deck is dry," he replied. She entered the delay in the forecast and did not overrule him. Everett's authority was written into his employment agreement and the board minutes. He had the power to stop work. Leah had the power to fire him. If she did, the state record would change with the employment. Caleb passed the examination on his second attempt. He did not become responsible managing individual. He spent 6 months under Everett rotating through safety, field supervision, closeout, and claims. On my 45th day, I removed my boots from the Mercer locker for the second time. Wade waited in the yard. "Everett says you can stay as a consultant. Everett says he does not need me. That is why I trust him. A man likes to be needed. That kept both of us here too long." He nodded toward my car. "What will you call the new business?" "Clear Line Building Diagnostics. Sounds like a company that sends invoices for telling people they have water. That is almost the business plan. Use Mercer. People know Mercer." No. The answer hurt him. It also freed me from needing him to agree. The school cooperative completed its review of East Ridge records and offered Clearline a smaller assignment. I would inspect 3 roofs under repair, with the East Ridge findings disclosed in the file. The contract was worth less than half the original opportunity. By then, my Mercer association had ended. Clearline held its own active commercial contractor license, bond, and insurance, with me recorded as its responsible managing individual. Denise verified the listing before I accepted. She gave me work that could be checked. East Ridge settled after the test cuts established the repair scope. Mercer used the $225,000 reserve to repair its own roof work. North Cascade Surety contributed nothing. Pioneer Casualty settled covered interior and tenant damage for $48,000 after its coverage review. Mercer paid the $10,000 policy deductible. My father did not lose the house. He did not regain certainty either. Each bank report arrived on the 15th. Each month, Leah sent it instead of him. I never received the $86,000 profit allocation. The waiver stayed in Nora's file. For the first time in 31 years, nothing Mercer owed me could keep me there. 6 months later, Clearline rented a 1,200-square-foot bay off Portland Road. It had 1 office, 1 roll-up door, and a roof somebody else was responsible for. Luis found a used workbench online. The seller delivered it with 1 leg shorter than the others. I was on the floor measuring cedar shims when Wade appeared at the open door. He carried a 4-foot aluminum level scarred with roofing cement. His initials were scratched near one end. Mine were near the other, cut there when I was 19 and tired of every tool being called his. That belongs to Mercer, I said. Mercer has 6 levels. This is the straight one. That is why I brought it. He placed it across the bench. The bubble leaned left. Your floor drops toward the drain, he said. The leg is short. Both can be true. We tried 1 shim, then 2. The bench rocked. My father held the far corner while I trimmed a 3rd piece with a utility knife. Caleb ran his first closeout meeting, Wade said. How did he do? He listened for almost 7 minutes. A company record. Wade smiled. Everett made him write the corrective actions before lunch. Good. He pressed down on the bench. Your mother wants us Sunday. For dinner. She says this garage does not count as seeing each other. She is right. Do not tell her I said that. If you have ever confused being needed with being respected, subscribe for the next story. I slid the 3rd cedar shim under the short leg. My father watched the bubble move between the black lines. He lifted his hand. The bench stayed level, and neither of us claimed we had done it alone.